Hey everybody, it's Jason Blah here, and I'm just sitting here drinking my morning coffee, getting ready to squat, get my day started. And a topic that kind of came up, someone had told me, or several people in the video I made yesterday, I did a video talking about Jeff Cavalier's squat thing, and I kind of disagreed with him saying you can't just squat all the time and develop a good squat. And then I had people argue with me saying, well, there's tons of elite lifters who do enormous amounts of accessory and follow this doing more accessory work than their competition lifts, blah, blah, blah. All right, guys, that's not actually true. There are a lot who do, but there are a lot who don't. And people need to understand the difference of kind of how these ideas developed and the fact that, no, there are some very, very elite lifters who do high specialization. And people need to understand these are two different philosophies, and both of them have produced elite lifters. So when someone says you have to do this, that's the problem. That's the problem. When you have people in both drug-tested and undrug-tested guys who are competing at the world level, and you have people in two different camps, you can't stand there and say that only one of them works. You just can't do that. You can, but you're going to sound like an idiot. So when people say things like you have to do all these accessories to build a lift up, that's not true. It's one way that you can do it. And a lot of that originally came out of Westside Barbell. And people need to understand Westside was originally designed for multiply lifters. All right, multiply lifters is not raw powerlifting. And yeah, they say things like they spend at least 70% of their time doing accessory work and not the main movements, and they focus really heavy on box squats, speed work, good mornings, band work, chain work, all these variations, board presses. So they do a lot of different variations, and yeah, I think at some points in their training, some of their guys are doing up to 90% of their training with things other than the competition lifts. But you need to understand there are people who basically also do only around 4 lifts in their close variations also, who compete at the world level. Like I'm talking guys with 900 plus pound squats. They're out there. So you can't stand there and say that you must do all this accessory. You can't just do your big lifts and some upper back work and build tremendous numbers. And I'm going to say his name wrong. I mean, a perfect guy that comes to mind, anyone who follows a Bulgarian training, Damian Pizzuti. Now, I think the guy's like 220 now and squatting over 700. Or 700 plus. I know he squats at least 700 without a belt in the 220. But Damien, like if people noticed a while back, he was promoting heavily Bulgarian training. He's used it heavily where you're coming in and doing high frequency. And I think at one time, like it was noted that for a power lifter, the guy looked really jacked. A lot of people were talking about it a year or two ago. Because at a certain time, he was under 200 pounds and like 8% body fat, weighing under 200 pounds, and he was squatting well over 600. He was deadlifting like 700, benching 400 plus, weighing like 185, 190 pounds, and peeled and looking jacked. And he's a guy who promotes coming in and squatting and benching every day. You would only deadlift once a week, but then you would have something like he would recommend things like you come in and do 10 heavy singles once every 4 weeks. And then doing a lot of upper back work and rows and things. So basically a heavy focus on extremely heavy, high frequency competition lifts, and then just rowing and upper back work thrown in. His accessories. And when I talked about his 600 plus squats and stuff, that's beltless, by the way. The guy does everything without a belt. So, I mean, you're talking about strong guys like that. Or you take people like Stephanie Cohen, who, yeah, she does do accessories, but she also said that she has periods of time, like phases, and she has historically because she's got 2 different types of competitive sports. She just does the competition lifts. She has phases in her training where she does the 3 power lifts and the 3 Olympic lifts, or the 2 Olympic lifts. So she basically would squat, bench, deadlift, snatch, clean and press, or clean and jerk. And she would say stuff like a lot of times in the off season, though, I would conventional deadlift instead of sumo, even though she pulls sumo and comp, just to balance things out. All right, there's other examples. Another guy at one point, I forgot, the big Russian guy who hit that 1,000 plus pound raw squat. His last name starts with an M. It's a long name. I can't pronounce it. I saw an interview a while back with his training where he said at a certain point he would just come in and do squat, bench, deadlift, and rows. And he would do stuff like he would do 10 sets of them on some sort of linear periodization. a lot of times where he would come in and just squat once a week, bench once a week, deadlift once a week, and then rows and things. And so pretty much he would do stuff to where he would come in and do 10 sets of squats and start with high reps and then build up with linear periodization all the way down to singles and stuff. So that's basically how he trained, just a heavy focus on power lifts. And I do know some other guys who are very, very strong. Actually, you see a lot of guys who are very strong for their size, like guys who are trying to get in weight classes. Do nothing good squat, bench, deadlift, row. And the reason a lot of times they do that is that they gain only the muscle necessary to do those lifts without worrying about building additional muscle. Do I need to add more muscle to my delts? Do I need more muscle to my quads or pecs or whatever it is? Instead of putting an extra focus on accessories, they go, okay, I need exactly enough muscle to deadlift 650. I don't need any more lat or trap than is necessary for me to deadlift the number I need to hit in comp. So, and they tend to be the leaner guys too. So you see a lot of guys who do that. I know a number of guys personally, or guys I talk to who train in that manner, who cut down to 9-10% body fat for meets. They're still carrying a fair amount of muscle, but they only carry the amount of muscle they need to hit their competition lifts. And they still look pretty jacked, particularly the guys who get lean like that. They look jacked. I mean, let's be serious here, guys. If you bench 350 and you deadlift 600 plus, and you're 10% or less body fat, you're probably going to look pretty jacked. All right, they look pretty jacked. Some of them look bodybuilder-ish. So people need to understand, though, that there is more than one way to do this. I personally like to lean in the direction of not a lot of accessories. I think that some accessories are good. I think a lot of accessories are there just to balance your physique. I think they can be good in some cases for injury prevention. But a lot of these accessories, in my opinion, you guys got to remember, this goes back to Westside Barbell. Their competition lifts can change tremendously because of bar pass and everything else, just where their suit changes. So a lot of these guys do a lot of things to train through different points of the bar path in case something sticks or there's an issue. And again, also so that there can be a certain amount of mysticism around what they do. Guys like Louis Simmons, you know, he does a lot of this and it works, but there's a lot of mysticism there in the sense of you kind of need to come to Louis to get all the info. And I'm not saying it doesn't work. He produces some champions, and Westside, that's what they're about. But by that same token, their training gets extremely complex, extremely convoluted, and coming down to, oh, you know, it's the good mornings that build your squat, it's this, it's that. But when we start pushing more towards raw powerlifting, a lot of people do find that in the raw powerlifting that minimalism seems to work pretty well. And I don't mean minimalism of training. There are plenty of guys who are squatting every single day, or people who are doing, 20, 30 sets of squats a week. So minimalism doesn't mean low volume. Minimalism means low exercise selection. And there are plenty of guys out there who do quite the opposite. They focus on things like the 3 competition lifts, close variations, things like doing pause squats, pin squats, pause deadlifts, deficit deadlifts, wide bench, closed grip bench, maybe some floor presses, barbell rows, a lot of rowing, pulling for the upper back. There are plenty of people out there who are champions who train that way. So the point here being, you shouldn't just be married to one system and think that that's the only thing that can possibly work. Because there are absolutely tons of people who have brutal strength, who compete at very high levels in the sport, who don't do a wide variety of exercise selection. And you know what, guys? There's plenty of really jacked guys in both groups. There's plenty of really strong guys in both groups. So when you make an absolute statement like you have to do accessory work or tons of accessory work, that's where you need to put your effort, that's not based on reality. Let me explain how this works. It's a choice. It's a personal choice of what training style appeals to you. It's a personal choice of what training style appeals to you at this point, because it's pretty difficult, if not impossible, to say which one is absolutely superior when there are record holders in multiple weight classes in both camps, and including both tested and untested. So you can't make absolute statements like that and have it as if it's some sort of truth. No, it's like you can choose to do a bunch of accessories. But just remember, in some cases, your accessory work, making poor choices in your accessory work, can actually slow you in your progress towards your goals, and can even create bad habits sometimes if you're not careful. So you need to be very, very selective in what you do. I mean, a perfect example, if you're going to be a raw squatter, most raw squatters probably shouldn't be doing good mornings. That's a perfect example of one. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.